Yeah, Darren Schreiber at UCSD in the Political Science Department, and mixing a little bit of neuroscience in there as well. I have had a sort of divine experience in a number of years ago, and I don't know what part of the brain it was coming through. It was I had had a vision at one point that appeared to me to later on in reflection to have fairly deep spiritual significance with my life. And
could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I had a vision of a passage from the Bible. I didn't know what the significance of it was at the moment. I was meditating. I was doing that every day for a very long period of time to cope with an emotional trauma, and had just a vision of just this set of Bible verses like you see in the top corner if you open up Gideon's. And
were you in a hotel?
No. But I wasn't in a hotel. I wasn't on mescaline, and I don't believe I was having a temporal lobe epilepsy. And I won't go into the whole experience of why that I saw that to be a message to me. It had a number of features of it. This particular verse, when I looked it up later, it was actually like 2 days later when I thought, well, this was weird. I've never had that kind of a vision. I wonder what it means. And then had a Pentecostal about 3 weeks later explain it to me. And when they said what they thought that this meant, I went from being in a very normal affective state to bawling my eyes out. And it was really shocking for me to have experienced something that dramatic of a shift in my own affective state. Having recently gone through another personal emotional tragedy in the last number of months, I've been searching for I was talking to a friend of mine who was a pastor and was talking with him about this. And he said, you know, Darren, sometimes God brings us into the unknown. And I think being in the unknown is a very uncomfortable place for us to be as scientists. I mean, this is what drives us often, is to get out of that place of the unknown. And I thought later about the story of Job in the Bible. And Job in this story is being placed in a horrible position. And he's faced with the unknown. And as I was contemplating that today, I was thinking that there are sort of 4 responses that I'm, I think, called to as a person of faith when I'm placed in the unknown. And one of those is to keep searching. I think that I feel called to keep searching, that we as people of faith are called to keep searching, not to just give up, not to just say, well, we don't understand, but to keep searching. A second is a striving for humility. And that's something that I've felt has been lacking often in the discussions today. If we don't have humility as scientists, it's very difficult to acknowledge when we're wrong. It's very difficult to realize that there's something else that is unknown that should drive us to the next set of hypotheses, the next set of inquiries. A third thing that I feel called to as a person of faith when facing the unknown is to love others. It's, again, something it's fairly simple, but again, also something that I've been hearing as lacking in some of the discussion today. I think a lack of respect for the belief systems of others, a lack of the respect for faith that others have, or the choices that others make in their lives. The fourth thing that I feel called to when I listen to the story of Job in the Bible is a call to be present with the unknown, and that sometimes there are just things that we just don't know. And that's something that, again, is uncomfortable. It's not a place I want to be as a scientist. But sometimes everything that we know about science tells us that we're just going to be in that place of the unknown.
Annie?
Yes, I would like to humbly and respectfully disagree with you. My name is Annie Druyan, and I'm founder of Cosmos Studios and honored to have been a longtime collaborator of Carl Sagan. And I'd like to say that I think it's just the opposite of what you're saying from my perspective, humbly. One is that I think that science tolerates the unknown in a way that religion doesn't. My argument is not with people who search for God. My argument is with people who feel that our understanding of God is completed. And those are the people who make so much of our existence on this planet such a hell, because they really think that they have the right to kill other people, to hurt them, because of what they understand God's will to be. That's a very destructive thing. So science is, the whole methodology of science is saying that we are not permitted these absolute truths that religion pretends to have, that we do not know the answer to these questions. And not only that, but the little that we think we do know, if you can prove us wrong, we'll give you our highest reward. And that's part of the methodology. That's part of the whole functioning of the system itself. So yes, in answer to what Joan was saying earlier, scientists do terrible things. Scientists have biases. Religious people do terrible things, and they have biases. But absolutely intrinsic to the whole the methodology of science is that error-correcting mechanism, which says we must never lose sight of that. That's not in religion. That's not present at all. Talk about humble. It's the fact that we do science and that we can bring ourselves to see that little tiny earth in Carolyn's presentation. That is humility. What science has done for us spiritually is that it has been the only thing that I know of that has compelled us to wean ourselves of our infantile need for centrality. And that was present, that is very much the essence of so many religious formulations of where we come from, why we came to be. It's the sign of mental health, that we can bear to think that this planet was perfectly fine for 4.5 billion years without us. That cosmic evolution goes on for 13.5 billion years before we even get here. How long have we been in science? How long have we systematically been looking at nature? Not even 400 years. And yet science gets us out to Enceladus. It takes us out of the solar system. It enables us to wean ourselves of that spiritual narcissism which compelled us to be at the center of everything. So when it comes to humility, when it comes to a tolerance for ambiguity and for the unknown, I think science worships the unknown. I think scientists are most comfortable in that place of not knowing. And that's where they live. And that's the great strength of science. So I would respectfully disagree.
We can go on if you like, but it's 7 o'clock, 7:10. That seems to have been a wonderful note to end on.